All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today on this episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below. Follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. Today, though, on this episode, we're just going to take a real quick moment. We're going to go over a few different things here in the gardens. Frost has really hit here this fall, and everything's pretty much done for our summer growing season. And there were some things that just didn't work out too well. And I talked about that in an episode or two ago about explaining and talking about some of the things that I feel are just kind of like a little bit of a failure this year. And each year we kind of have maybe a few of those as we're always trying to do different things and grow new things. But this year overall, I'm just really kind of disappointed in the whole gardens when it comes down to it. And if you've been paying attention to the channel, you've probably noticed I haven't been really covering a lot of those sort of things going on here at home. So I'm really kind of disappointed about that, but I am really determined to keep on growing and keep on making these gardens even better as we grow into this next season. So we're not going to be deterred from all of this, different things that have happened to our garden this season. We're going to keep on growing, keep on making sure that we're putting out the best effort that we can, and hopefully that'll pay off in the long run. So I've got some video footage that I shot over a couple of weeks ago or so, and I was kind of talking about some of the different things going on around the garden. Let's take a minute or two here and take a look at some of this footage. So in our back alleyway, we've got our corn stand that we planted out this year. Didn't quite get all of the corn pollinated on the top, but the rest of the year looks really nice. We'll have to cook that up later. So overall, looks like we're gonna get a few good ears off of this stand. Down below, we had a squash plant. We didn't get really much of anything. We do got this one little butternut squash here, and it is little. Still putting off flowers, but I don't think we have much of a season left to be able to get anything else off of that. Up underneath of the corn here, I'm just discovering this. This is a spaghetti squash. And it's growing from a plant on the other side of the fence over here, but I didn't know we were getting any fruit out of it. Thought that it wasn't going to produce at all, but lo and behold, right back here, we got ourselves a little squash. Sunflower stand is all dried out. We do got one more on its last legs right there. Down below here, we got ourselves nice ripe cantaloupe we'll have to pull out there. We were able to harvest several different cantaloupes from both the inside of the garden and here on the outside. We've had several of those. So cantaloupe's been doing really well. There have been the little tiny ones too that have come along. But unlike last year, I planted eggplant out here. And even last year I planted the eggplant late, very similar to this year. But this year we're not getting anything really. These plants have not grown hardly at all. Now that the weather has cooled down a little bit though, they are starting to produce new growth and flowers. And it looks like even this one down here wants to put out a fruit. But again, a little bit late in the season, probably not going to get any production. And a couple of more cantaloupe there. And this here is another plant which I'm not too sure about. We'll have to give it a try probably next year or see what happens as we finish off this season here. It really did grow really nice. Same with the one in our back patio. just no real production of any ground cherries on this plant. But same thing. Season's cooling off from all the heat. It's putting off a bunch of new growth, even trying to put out some fruit. And here we have our pumpkin patch. Got some nice ripe pumpkins. Vines are pretty much done. Plant is about died off. Right, so we got ourselves a little watermelon here. I do believe this one is a kind of like a white creamy flesh watermelon. It's one of the only ones I got growing though. As much as I like watermelon, I didn't get very many. We got this one here and this one here. It's got kind of a funny shape to it, and I'm not sure exactly what we're going to see when we get inside of it. Just wanted to share with everybody that it's a common question, you know, when is it time to harvest your watermelon? You've got this stem that comes out right here, right at the very first leaf that comes out. In between that, there will be a little tendril. And there are these things that just, you know, wrap around and grab a hold of things and do whatnot. But there's this one that grows right in there. And once it gets all dried off, like this one here, then that means your watermelon should be ripe and ready to go. Another thing to look for, it's kind of a yellow bottom too. So I'm not sure, this one's still just a little white. Might have a little day or so to go, but we're gonna get into it and see. We're growing some spaghetti squash. The plant has about had it. It's been infected with powdery mildew and different things as well. We got some onions down here growing up underneath of our corn stalks. We've got several of them in there. And just so you see, this here, the corn silks that come off the top. The corn ears are going to be ready to harvest, and these corn silks dry up. So similar to the watermelon, we're just looking for them to kind of have a part of them dry out to let you know that they're ready to come off of the plant. So it's time to talk about this. Now we built this up, an iCard above right now for the episode on the above ground raised bed gardens. But we have this here, which we planted out cucumbers. Now I did get several cucumbers to harvest off of here. Nothing quite what I was looking for. And several deformed ones like this. And I'm sure what my problem is here is I planted probably too many of these. And they probably just crowded each other out, causing them to kind of stress out a bit. I think that's where we got a lot of that flower production, but not much fruit production. So the key to doing cucumbers for us next year will be less plants, and we're going to add another layer to this. We're going to make it even deeper. So we're going to make it even deeper and less plants, give those roots a lot more room to grow in. And that should give us better production. All right, here in our 5-gallon water wicking bucket system here that we have, put a link right up above to the episode where we put these together. Really like this system if you're working on a patio garden or need buckets to grow your vegetables in. Feed it through there, down into the bottom, where it wicks out the water into the top bucket, feeding the plant. In this bucket we have our ground cherry growing. Now, similar to the ground cherry out in the alleyway, not getting much production, but we're starting to see some real new growth as the weather has changed. And right here, starting to see one of our first fruits off of it. So we'll have to wait and see if these will fully produce or not. Now, I don't really know why I've continued to grow these two Brussels sprouts here, but I don't know, I'm interested in seeing what'll happen. They dealt with a lot of bug pressure and heat pressure as the season got warm during the summertime, but as I can already start telling, there's going to be some new growth coming up here as it gets a bit cooler. And we'll see if maybe we can't get us some really good viable sprouts eventually. Inside of the fence line, we have my bean trellis. And with just one bean plant down in there, we've got ourselves a big, huge plant already starting to produce plenty of green beans for us. I do need to start pulling these off the plant because you'll want to pull your green beans off. The more you pull them off, the more they produce. And hiding in here too, we've got ourselves another pepper plant. I believe this one here is a yellow monster, and they're starting to look like monsters, all right. There's still some good size fruits on this plant here. So right, as you can tell from those video clips, there were some things that just did not work out for us, as I was saying. But, you know, we did have some really good things that did. And so we're not going to take this gardening season as totally not being successful at all. We're going to keep our heads up, and we're going to look forward to this next season, and we're going to grow even better and bigger. And I hope that you join along with me and check out some of the cool things that we're going to have coming up here this next year when it comes to our home gardens. And hopefully I'm going to get everything worked out and get things set up so that we can really take a good focus at our community gardens as well. So look forward to all of that in upcoming episodes of The Urban Gardener as we continue growing. I want to also take a minute here and look around at some of the things that are going on around the garden right now as we just hit our first big fall frost. All right, so our really big, heavy frost finally hit. Here it is, mid-November, and finally getting our first frost. Should have seen that a few weeks ago, but we were lucky and we were able to get a lot more of our tomatoes and other peppers and different things. We were able to get some little extra late harvest out of them all. But they're all done now. Still got several of our Praxis cherry tomatoes to kind of pull off real quick here, which I'll do. As you can tell, they're still trying to produce a lot more tomatoes. This plant just produces tons and tons of tomatoes. Actually, we've got 3 different plants there. But you can tell they are done for the season. And as well, our Tres Amigos Poblanos. Really strong, really wonderful plants. We went in this last week and picked out as much of the big ones as we could. Still got a few little ones on the plants here, but those guys are done for the season. Down below though, we've got some leeks. Our leeks are actually starting to grow and size up really well. They're gonna like this cooler weather a bit. So we'll see a lot more growth here coming up. Should have some leek soup this winter, along with that celery we got growing back there. I plucked that celery down and used a lot of it for different recipes a few weeks ago, or about a month or so ago, and it's already grown all the way back again. And we've got our above ground raised beds here with our trellis netting set up, and in there we've planted out peas. So we got a few different pea plants growing here, right here as well, to grow up our trellis there. And these peas are just getting established right now, right before winter time, and they will kind of stop growing as it gets colder and colder, but because they're already established and put in the beds like they are at this time, come spring they'll have a real quick head start as the weather starts to warm up, and we should have some peas really in the early cool season this next year. And in front, as you can see, we've planted out several spinach plants. There's a few kind of crowding in there we're going to pull out and kind of transplant them out to another part of the garden. But let's look forward to seeing some peas coming up this next season. And some of our other pepper plants, as you can tell, are also just done for the season. Next to that is one of our other above ground raised beds. All of these we've kind of fixed and repaired and also made them a bit deeper. So we have a lot deeper beds. Here I planted out some tatsoi and some baby bok choys. And we got some radishes growing here in one of our small beds. They're starting to produce little radishes in there now, and you'll harvest those up here real soon. And over here we planted out a bunch more different greens, lots of different varieties of lettuce, and some more radish over here. A cabbage plant I don't expect much from, but like I said, we also hear more of our above ground raised beds. I didn't make this one deeper as it's been a really solid bed and didn't really need any repairs, but I did repair all the other ones. And as well as you see, we did this one here, our big above ground raised bed. This one is more stilted, so you can pretty much just stand up and do all your work from there, but not quite the best carpenter. We went in and made it deeper like all the other ones, reset the bottom and put it in, but my craftsmanship is not the best. So we had a little fallout here. And I'm gonna have to go in and remove all of this soil that I put in there, and that's a lot of soil too. I'll have to remove all of that, refix the base of that, hopefully have this bed back up and running for our next season coming up. And along the side alleyway we've got our blueberry bushes here. We planted this last season and they seem to be doing really well, getting themselves really established well. Here just recently I did chip up some wood chips from a bush that I have that I pruned down, and as well we got some clippings from a juniper tree that we clipped back as well. That should add some really good acidity as that breaks down throughout the winter here. We'll get those spread out around there. Ought to be a really nice mulch. And one of the other things that didn't necessarily work out that well for us this year, we tried potting up in this really large pot our raspberry bushes. They didn't necessarily like it or take to that very well. They went through a pretty big shock. But as you can see, they did try to keep growing, and they've still got some life left in them. I'm going to leave them there and see what happens this next season. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today on this episode of The Urban Gardener. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything at all, hit me up in that comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Give this video a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener, and I'll see you on the very next episode. Take a look at some of this footage, and I'll see you in a minute. The whole "I'll see you in a minute" thing, I don't know. Let's take a few minutes, take a look around, take a look at some of this video. Take a look at some of this footage, and I'll see you. I don't want to say I don't see. What do you see, dude? What do you see, Carl? What's going on, bud? You keeping an eye on everything out here?